A child's geographic location in India largely determines the quality of the classroom they sit in. But if you put a smartphone in the hands of a student in a rural village and another in a wealthy New Delhi high-rise, both worlds suddenly gain access to the exact same teacher. To understand why that digital bridge is so vital, you have to grasp the sheer demographic weight of the country. According to the government's UDISE Plus data, the official registry of Indian education, there are over 1.4 million recognized schools operating across the nation. This visualization compares the 247 million K-12 students navigating those schools against the entire population of the United States. And those children make up roughly half of India's broader 500 million-strong student market. For millions of these students, upward mobility relies entirely on clearing hyper-competitive exams, tests like the IIT-JEE for engineering, NEET for medical school, and the CAT for business management. The pressure to succeed is intense, and the competition is fierce. When you place a student population of this size inside a physically strained classroom system, you create a massive imbalance between academic demand and actual supply. BYJU Ravindran was an engineer who started casually coaching his friends for the CAT exam in the mid-2000s. He was effective enough that his workshops rapidly scaled from small rooms to massive auditoriums and stadiums filled with 20,000 students. But physical spaces have hard limits. Ravindran realized that no matter how large the stadium, a single teacher could only project their voice so far. To replicate his teaching style and reach millions, he had to digitize the classroom. This transition to video lessons was driven by the logistical reality that physical coaching centers simply could not accommodate the sheer volume of students needing help. In 2015, that stadium teaching model evolved into the BYJU'S learning app. The company pioneered a concept they called entertainment, pairing subject matter experts with high-end animation and gamified video lessons to hold a student's attention. Then the pandemic forced physical schools to close. Lockdowns accelerated digital adoption overnight, giving millions of isolated students immediate access to world-class learning tools. This line chart tracks the resulting financial frenzy. Global venture capital poured billions into the sector, rapidly inflating an economic bubble and minting highly valued startup unicorns like Unacademy, PhysicsWallah, and, at the top of the pile, BYJU'S. Flush with cash, BYJU'S began actively manufacturing prestige. They spent massive amounts of their venture capital on aggressive marketing campaigns, hiring Bollywood megastars like Shah Rukh Khan. They took that strategy global, sponsoring the Indian cricket team and the 2022 FIFA World Cup. The original mission of democratizing learning was officially overshadowed by a new mandate: secure hypergrowth and scale the company's valuation at all costs. To maintain the illusion of endless expansion, BYJU'S went on a $2.8 billion spending spree. They absorbed massive domestic legacy institutions like Akash and international platforms like Epic and White Hat Jr., buying up market footprint rather than building it organically. But sustaining a $22 billion valuation requires relentless revenue. To get it, the company deployed highly aggressive sales tactics, intentionally targeting low-income families by weaponizing their anxieties about their children's futures. Looking at this financial flowchart, we can see exactly how parents were trapped. BYJU'S pushed families into equated monthly installment, or EMI, schemes. The company received the full course fee upfront from third-party lenders in cash. The parents were then locked into inescapable monthly direct debits, often finding it impossible to cancel the service. Their marketing became openly deceptive. Subsidiary White Hat Jr. ran heavy ad campaigns featuring a child named Wolf Gupta, who allegedly secured a multi-million-dollar AI job at Google. Subsequent investigations proved the child and the job were entirely fabricated works of fiction, designed to trigger parental FOMO. Education was no longer the primary product. The company was actively monetizing parental anxiety as a financial instrument. The catalyst for the crash came when pandemic restrictions lifted. Students returned to physical classrooms, and digital subscription renewals immediately cratered. Without new revenue masking the massive expenses, the internal financial structure of the company quickly began to rot. The company delayed filing its audited financials for 18 months, prompting their official auditor, Deloitte, to resign in protest because they couldn't accurately assess the books. Then came the catastrophic default on a $1.2 billion commercial loan. U.S. lenders sued the company, alleging that hundreds of millions of dollars in loan proceeds had been quietly transferred to an obscure hedge fund. This chart visualizes the brutal domestic fallout. Valued at $22 billion at its peak, the number collapsed down to zero. The company laid off over 5,000 employees. Offices were raided by the country's Economic Intelligence Agency, and India's bankruptcy court initiated formal insolvency proceedings. The world's most valuable EdTech startup had destroyed itself by prioritizing relentless financial scale over actual educational substance. With the giant of the industry dismantled, does that mean the Indian EdTech experiment failed? Not entirely. The aggressive push during the pandemic permanently integrated digital learning into the daily routines of millions of Indian households. The habit remains, even if the primary vendor does not. Surviving competitors, like PhysicsWallah, watched the collapse and took notes. They proved that an educational platform can be highly profitable and sustainable without resorting to predatory sales tactics and massive marketing waste. The industry has now pivoted toward hybrid learning. Companies are heavily investing in physical tuition centers, blending the localized accountability of offline teachers with the scalable, high-quality content of their online apps. The sector matured. They learned the hard way that software cannot replace the physical school. It can only augment it. Despite the spectacular crash of its biggest player, the broader Indian EdTech market is still projected to reach $30 billion by the end of the decade. Those 500 million students effectively served as a massive, real-world stress test. They pushed the limits of what digital education could do and exposed exactly where it breaks down. The valuation crash and the shift to hybrid centers proved that while software provides scale, the physical classroom remains the essential foundation of Indian education.